Let's go ahead and find a seat if we can. You might have to turn me up, Ian. If we can go ahead and try to find a seat, we'll go ahead and get the Bible class started this morning. Great to hear, again, all the conversations and the catching up and whatnot. If you recall, the last time I taught, I did this little interactive type thing. We're not going to show this to the people online, just so it's coming up right now. So if you want to join, go ahead and join now. If not, it's fine. You'll hopefully see some of the interactions with not. But we were just thinking that anybody, if we're showing this online, anybody could really come in and start writing stuff on here if they really wanted to, I guess. But anyways, we're studying Christians in the workplace. And we're continuing our study this morning around God's viewpoint of our work. And I was working on this morning, and the whole PowerPoint just kind of blew up on me. But luckily for OneDrive, you can actually go back and get version histories of it. And so I was really scared there for a minute. But I think this should work the way that I intended. But our class schedule here, if you remember, we're working on these first 3 lessons around the biblical foundation of kind of what it means to have this idea or this theme around Christians in the workplace. We did the introduction. Doug took us through our viewpoint of working unto God, not unto men on Tuesday. This morning we're going to kind of work through this God's viewpoint of our work and try to kind of build up on this biblical theme to kind of take us through the remainder of this study. Just a quick review. Again, on the introduction, we kind of talked about these pillars of our lives that we were kind of segregating. We had our social life, our work life, our family life, our church life, and we were really intending to try to show that these things aren't really separate entities or separate parts of our lives, and we're really the central point of that, the common denominator around it, and we should all really just try to recognize that, we should all be one person within these things. But sometimes what happens is that we are interacting with different people. We have to kind of act differently sometimes, and so it kind of inadvertently we start to change our character and change our mindset per se, and so really shouldn't be doing that. And we wanted to focus in just in this study around that work pillar, because we were kind of showing, or tried to show, that work takes up a lot of our time, takes up a lot of our effort, our mind, or thinking about it a lot of times. I did some rough math, and 25% of our time just here on this earth within the hours, is around work. We're doing work, we're thinking about it, and hopefully, as we're thinking about it, we're trying to change our mindset around what we're doing. And because we're there so much, there is opportunity for us to, just be examples, to spread the gospel in the way that Christ would want us to. There were a lot of comments made, great ones. Again, it was around this mindset, that we must have this mindset change of how we're looking at our jobs and how we are looking at how we're interacting with these people, with our coworkers, with our bosses, with sometimes even our family. Sometimes we work with people within our own family. But other comments just around being examples. We don't have to have a Bible in our hand to show somebody the gospel. It's through our actions and how we handle ourselves through difficult situations that will sometimes show people that we are different, that we're not, just the standard quo of what people think about whenever you're at work. But a lot of this, we really need to try to just build how we're reacting to people just around what the Bible says about it. And is there anything in the Bible that talks about work? So hopefully we'll get to that. But Doug took us through our viewpoint of our work. There was this picture, and I wanted to show it again just because Shannon asked me about it on the way home. And I hope you're not embarrassed about this, but she's like, I didn't get that picture. And I was just like, well, did you not understand what it was? That's like, it was a dog. He's looking at himself in the mirror, and he's painting himself as a German Shepherd. And she's like, oh, I get it. And so I hope everybody kind of saw that. And I think, to Doug's point, it was just like, a lot of times we see ourselves as something that maybe we're not. I think guys do that a lot when they're working out. They look in the mirror, and they're like, man, I got some big muscles, and we really don't. But, are we representing ourselves, I think, in the way that we should be? That's what I got out of it, Doug, and hopefully that's, maybe that wasn't what you were intending, but that's kind of what I saw. But he also kind of took us through these biblical relationships, these scenarios that we have within our lives. He took us through 4 different ones where one was a Christian, one was not. Both are Christians. And I think the intent is that out of all of those scenarios, more than likely we're going to be in one where it's not perfect, or both people in the relationship are both Christian, which would potentially be a good experience. But because there's 3 other ways that you can make that combination, there's a likelihood that we're going to experience that within our lives. And so can we be prepared for that? And we have opportunities, because there are, so many opportunities for that we can influence people in a good way, and sometimes we can influence people in a bad way if we're not careful with the way that we're handling ourselves and doing those things. So a lot of great comments here. We talked about people's experience as working with Christians. And I think Jessica talked about working at the place that she works at, and she's around spiritual people all the time. It's really uplifting to just know that the people around you are godly people, and to be around those things, it's comforting. And Jeremy talked about it being a shield, and you have this common bond of just knowing that somebody is there that can watch over you. And in a sense, whenever you know that there's people around you that are Christian, you almost kind of uplift not only your own standards, but your own standards of how you should act, because you know that if I worked with Brian all the time, I'd know that I need to probably act appropriately around Brian all the time. It just kind of changes our mindset of how we're doing things, I think. So, and then we got some advice on how to act, and I think that was one of the things Brian kind of talked about. It's like, say it early, say it often, tell these people right off the bat that you're Christian whenever you're in there. It's like, let them know who you are so that you're not hiding these things, and you're not, trying to live these different lives, I guess. And so, great advice. So, any comments or anything, or any questions or anything around those quick review before we kind of, I think, get into it? Hey, Barbara?
Show what you are with talking to someone
Oh, yeah.
on the phone. I've had a lot of people from this Medicare daily, almost the same ones, and they've always commented, you're so kind, or you're so nice, or just different things, because I don't just use a lot of vulgar words and all to them.
Yeah. Just how we talk to people is definitely a sign of who we are. So, real quick, I just wanted to kind of go over our goals here. Everything that we are trying to recognize is that we're doing it for God's glory. We got to have that change in mentality that, regardless of what we're doing, we need to figure out what is it that we're doing that kind of helps, God, to show people who God is. Identify and overcome. We need to learn to be able to identify, things that are going to be challenges for us, not only in our day-to-day lives, but or with our family, with our friends, just within work. I think Jordan references like, if you're going to look for a job, make sure that this job is going to give you an opportunity, that it's not going to be hard for you to be a Christian in that job atmosphere. And to that point, this is the first little thing that will interaction. So if you want to join, you just kind of put your phone up there. It'll join. It'll show you this question. Think about all the jobs that you've ever had, and if you want to share them with you. And then hopefully they'll start popping up here. But for me, it's like I used to be a Subway artist. I don't know if you guys knew that. I worked at Subway. I have been a lifeguard. Right now I work for an investment firm. I've done a lot of different things, whether you've been paid or not. I actually used to, at college, when I was in college, I went and actually I did actually get paid for that. I was going to give an example that I wasn't getting paid, but I was somewhat of a lab rat. I sat in a cubicle and I listened to these sounds where it would come on my left or on my right, and I had to push a button on my left or on my right anytime those sounds came. I did that for an hour. And every now and then the lady would say, like, Alex, are you awake? Are you awake? And so, well, anyways, you see we have a lot of different things. I made cheese boards in a wood shop. Interesting. Pack handler, teacher, reception, hardware, wedding photographer, cook, Chick-fil-A. My brother used to work at Chick-fil-A, and he would always bring home a bunch of chicken, and it was awesome. Bank teller. flight attendant, dentist, oil field worker, manager, babysitter, daycare helper, lab teaching assistant. A lot of different jobs out there. Now, the question is, out of all of Burger King, out of all of these jobs, decide which one of these was the easiest for you to live and practice what the Bible teaches. Out of all the jobs that you've had, which one was the easiest and which one to practice what the Bible teaches? And then, not only that, then ask yourself which one was the hardest. All those jobs, which one was the hardest to show that you were a Christian or to teach what the Bible teaches? Anyone want to share their easiest and their hardest? Anybody brave? Oh, Jeremy, we got a contestant.
Yeah, I guess the easiest was right after high school, working at Chick-fil-A, being a Christian-based company and working around other people. It was nice being off Sundays and stuff. And I think the hardest definitely was the oil field, working around those kind of guys and people that come in and you get all walks of life, and even being in the industries where, like, working for Caterpillar and the trucking industry, on highway, off highway, it was always really difficult to try to lead by example, because I was falling into the same trap. So
yeah. Anybody else? Oh.
Probably my most difficult was I was a fleet manager for quite a few years, and working around a bunch of mechanics. Have we got any mechanics in here? They're a crude lot.
Yeah.
They really are. They're tough. They're tough on the outside. Their language is tough. It was very difficult for me to act like I should when I was around them, because you're just inundated with it constantly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That kind of reminded me of, actually, now that I kind of think about it, my probably easiest place probably now might be the job that I'm in right now, but it's actually the hardest was also the job that I'm in right now, because I used to sit on the trade desk, and these traders, I mean, it was just like nonstop, foul mouth, this, that, and it was crazy. Brian?
I'll take a different tack. I think what was well, first of all, I wasn't a Christian my entire life, so it was very easy in the workplace when you weren't a Christian. You just fit in very nicely. Yeah. But I think the most difficult is among your peers, because the workplace, these people become your social group as well, if you will, during the day, and they become your friends. But they have worldly interest, and that's when you're with people you're comfortable with, people who are your friends, and then they talk and get involved in things that you know not to get into. That became the more difficult, I thought.
Yeah, that age, I think, was kind of one thing that I was thinking, kind of think to your very first point. It's like, probably early on in my career, I may not be as good of a Christian, or maybe not even, trying to think if I was even baptized at that point. You know, it was different back then. So, Ian?
Yeah, I would just add that, kind of building off what Jeremy said, it's definitely easier when there's other Christians present. But even, I've never been at a job where everybody there is an open Christian, but I've been at jobs where the leadership has come to me and said, hey, I heard you talking about God, or I heard you say you were going to pray for someone. And that gave me more comfort to be more openly, or I guess more courage to be more openly a Christian in that environment. It's certainly harder when not everyone, it's even hard when not everyone is a Christian, but some of them are. So it's like being here. All of us are Christians. This is like the best opportunity to maximize on being a Christian and to act that out. But when you go out in the world, it instantly changes.
Yeah. Sure.
So the same is true of work.
For sure. All right, last comment, and we'll keep it rolling, I think.
Well, I think the shipyard was probably the absolute toughest. Okay, because when you're in Southeast Texas around a group of, hicks to begin with and blue collar on top of that, that's a pretty difficult deal. But I'll tell you that being a 23-year-old young man sat at a church in Arkansas as the gospel preacher, not married, trying to be, trying to exhibit the attitudes Christ would have and to try to be a good influence, not only on my brethren, but on other people. This was very difficult because I was the target on both sides. You not only have your own brethren who can see all kinds of problems with you, but on the other side of the fence, the world could see a whole lot of problems. And for a 23-year-old man, that was difficult. It was very difficult.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot from that. One thing I learned is that we have to have patience with each other, especially our young men who are trying to do well, and young gospel preachers especially.
Yeah.
So I would tell you that maybe that was the second hardest job I ever had.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. There can be difficult situations, and you brought up just a thought in my head. It's like they are very difficult scenarios. You're surrounded by these things, but it's also, if you think about it, it's a great opportunity for us to influence these groups of people. And what triggered my mind is that when I worked on the trade desk, they were moving from Houston to Atlanta, and there was a young lady that they knew went to church all the time, and she's one of the traders. And these guys, when they moved over to the trade desk, they would cuss and all kinds of just vulgar language. And they knew, I forgot what her name was, but when they moved over there, they just stopped it all because she sat on the trade desk. Can you believe that? And maybe they didn't do it all completely, but they changed a lot of it just because of this one person. And they knew that she went to church, and they knew that they almost elevated their own standard of how they worked because of this one person. And so,
That we're in a group, they always will say, no foul language. Steve's here.
Yeah.
And I'm really thankful for that. I'm grateful that they respect me enough that, that they would do, or if they do slip, they go, Steve, I'm sorry I said that. I just think that's a very kind response.
And then they slip the tab and you gotta pay for the booze.
yeah. It's true. The manager, yeah. Well, let's kind of get through these goals. There's decisions that we need to make, more godly decisions. We need to figure out how to bring God to our lives. Justin has a comment. I'm going to try to get through these goals real quick before I get to you, Justin. But Christ-like examples, for those around us, we're kind of, definitely talking about that. Just be more aware that people are looking at us. And then there's guidance from godly men and women. One of the greatest gifts that we have are these people right here. Us as a church. And if we don't, look to talk to each other, to let each other know what we're struggling with. Mike has three daughters? He's offered to help me with the $2 that I have, and it's just like we have a wealth of knowledge, and we have to look for guidance from the people around us, especially here in this church. And then seek guidance in Scripture, and that's really, the basis, I think, of anything that we're doing. We can't go and make decisions in our life and then turn around and try to find justification and try to find Scripture to figure out, oh, well, I've made this decision already. Let me find out where in the Bible I'm showing that I'm right. It should be the other right way around. We should be looking in Scripture and then have that guide us through the decisions that we make in our lives. Justin, did you have something?
Yeah, I was kind of struggling. What I started to identify that I had never really put together before was, and maybe I've just been really fortunate, or maybe I just never put the thought into it to kind of notice the pattern, but I can't think of a job that I've had where there isn't at least one other person that I can identify with. and they may not be a Christian in the same way that I'm a Christian, but like I think about the job I have now. There's a coworker of mine who's Mormon, so we have a lot of similar, views on the way that we talk, the language that we use, the things that we do outside of work, all these other, principles that we try to adhere to in life. And I think about past jobs where that role was filled by a Calvinist or a Muslim or another Christian. I mean, there's always been other people that I can relate to and kind of help rely on when you may feel the pressure of the others around you. And I'm just curious, if we think about it, if we think about all our past jobs and who we were around, like, were there people there that maybe you didn't even realize, what benefit they added to you, just because of guiding principles in their lives that you can relate to? Yeah. And it just kind of helps, I think, overcome some of the pressures that come in when it seems like you're just surrounded by, foul language and people that just have different worldviews.
Mm-hmm. Good comment. Let's see, what else? Oh, just real quick, I didn't mention this on the first thing, but we think about, well, why are we studying this if I'm retired or I'm just tired? What's the point? And it's like really the concept of how we deal with people and how we are, making this idea of our character is not just specific to the work environment. I mean, it goes with everything that we're doing on how we act as a student, how we act as raising children, how we're interacting with our kids, with our loved ones, taking care of them. It's just interaction with people. And so even if you're retired in here and you're not really in the workplace, I mean, there's concepts here that hopefully you can benefit from. And, it's really great when, we can, work as a collective group and share those experiences, because it will help me to recognize that maybe Rick has done something that, that I need to watch out for, and he can tell me about those things. And it's just application for all, basically, is what I wanted to kind of go through. Real quick, here's, I think, the final poll here, so hopefully you're not getting tired of this. Is what are some reasons that we work? And it's not from a biblical standpoint, but really from this worldly, secular standpoint. Why do we work? And why do why do we have jobs? Or why do we need them? I mean, is there a reason to have them? And I'll give you all a second to money, gain knowledge, money. Commanded by who, if it's not biblical? To make a living, contribute to society, to eat, to live. Money is the big one. It's all coming down to money. Yeah, everyone's saying money. Status, influence, yeah. What else is on here? Provide for the family. Got to buy Christmas presents, that's for sure. To get stuff, self-esteem, yeah. A lot of different reasons from just a human, I guess, living perspective. A lot of different reasons of why we work. If a man doesn't work, he doesn't eat. Did you have a comment? Oh, Terry's got a comment?
Okay. We are commanded by God to work, even going back to Adam, when he had to work the earth, and it gave forth thorns and other things, but that's the only way we can support families. Just the whole idea of work, and with the things God gave us on this earth.
Yep, for sure. And I think that's well, these are my thoughts. Money, support family, help loved ones, purpose. Gives us purpose, I think. Sometimes we look for purpose in our lives, and you find a job, you feel like, oh, that's my purpose. Accomplishments, we get these accomplishments, challenges us in some aspect, and then just the social aspect. Sometimes it just keeps us busy. It's like, I think about being retired. Like, well, maybe I'll go work at Lowe's and be the door greeter someday and just try to be busy, It's not something I thought of, but to Terry's point, it's like, well, what does God think about work? And we kind of talked about this Doug brought this up, I think, on his, says, how long does it take before, as we begin to open up the Bible, how long does it take before we start hearing something about work? Immediately, right? Like, what was, they're basically the first book of the Bible. What was Adam and Eve's job? Take care of the garden, right? Tend to the garden. Is there any reference to other work besides Adam and Eve at the beginning? Cain and Abel? Anything else? God's work, right? Even before Adam and Eve, what was God doing? Creating, yeah. Creation. It actually says, Genesis chapter 2, and on the seventh day, God ended what? His work, which he had done. And he rested on the seventh day from all of his work. And so, if God is working, whose image is man made out of? God's image, right? And so, God said, let us make man in whose image? Our image, according to our likeness. Let him have dominion. That kind of means control over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth and every creeping thing. So God created man in his own image. And so if we are made in God's image, we see God is working. We see Adam and Eve were first humans on the earth, that they were to tend to the garden. Work from the very beginning of creation is here and is part of what God, I believe, had planned for us. Brian, did you have a comment? I saw you.
Well, I would go so far as to say is that God created us for work.
For work.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak from the perspective of a retiree, but let me tell you what, if you think every day is getting up, sleeping in late, drinking your coffee, working your crossword puzzle, and then taking a shower at 2 in the afternoon, it gets old pretty quickly.
Was that Monday or Tuesday?
And Wednesday and Thursday. But no, if it wasn't for the church and the other things that I do in life, I'd go crazy. But what did Jesus say? He who will be the greatest in heaven will be the servant of all, and that is our work. Yeah. Faith working through love, and that comes forth in serving others, which is what we see in Matthew 25 on the judgment scene.
Yeah, good comment. Anything else? So what does God think about work? Is work a result of the punishment Adam and Eve received? What do you guys think? I heard no. Why? Somebody other than Brian. I heard somewhere back here who said that. It was done before sin.
Raise your hand.
Work was commanded before sin. I think. Is there another comment? Yes, no? Maybe so.
Yeah, I mean, the command to work, the command to tend the garden, to keep, to, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, have dominion, all that stuff that you've already talked about is before sin. Maybe the clarifier would be, and you're going to get to this, you probably are, is that with sin, that becomes a lot more difficult because the world is broken, there's thorns and thistles, so man still has to work, but he was supposed to work before sin.
Absolutely.
As well.
David?
Yeah, you get into semantics a little bit here, but we're saying the word work, but really what we're saying is man has a purpose. And that's really important because our job isn't to be laid up on a beach, sipping cocktails, just enjoying the sunset.
Yeah.
We're made with this great purpose. God had a great purpose. Adam and Eve had a great purpose, and then purpose was and responsibility. And so, yeah, work is a good thing. It's not like a pejorative thing.
Yeah, for sure. You can talk. You got the mic.
I wanted to say, everybody's been on quite a journey in their life, but growing up, I did everything I could do to avoid working. Like that was like my goal. Yeah. How little work can I do? I think a lot of adults and people in general feel that way. Like, I want to avoid working as much as possible and sit around and just kind of relax and enjoy life. Like they think that would be more enjoyable than working, is doing nothing. Things have kind of come full circle for me. The realization that I was made to work, and that there's fulfillment in that work. It has become clear to me, just thinking about it. Of course, reading through the scriptures and reflecting on it, and then reflecting on my own life. So it's been a complete turnaround for me.
Good. I'm glad you're working, Michael.
Well, if you equate work with service, which I definitely think we should do, then service is everywhere. Whether it's your fellow man, whether it's in the church, whether it's serving God, we are commanded to serve others. So is work a result of the punishment? If you classify work as service to others, take the money out of it, because too many times we equate the work with what we're getting paid. Take the money out of it. What is work? It's service to your boss. It's service to citizens. It's service to each other. It's service all about.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, for sure. One more.
I would just simply say that the question was work a punishment? What we have here is the commandment to work, to till the garden, tend the garden. But with sin, work became more difficult. As you worked in the garden, thorns and thistles are going to grow. Weeds are going to exist. Mosquitoes are going to get you.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with sin.
Yep. So you guys answered everything correctly, so we'll pass all these slides here. So y'all did it all, so good job. Let me see, Old Testament examples. So if you want, open up your Bibles. I will have it up here on the text, or up here on the board, but it's sometimes hard to read. So Exodus chapter 35. We're going to read verses 10 through 25, and we're going to kind of just try to figure out what we can learn from this text. It's like the purpose, the outcome, why, what's going on here, anything that we can relate to this idea here of work and what we can learn from it. So Exodus chapter 35, starting in verse 10. It says, "All who are gifted artisans among you shall come and make all that the Lord has commanded. The tabernacles, its tents, its coverings, its clasps, its boards, its bars, its pillars, and its sockets, the ark and its poles, with the mercy seat and the veil of the covering, the table and its poles, all its utensils and the showbread, all the lampstands for the light, its utensils, its lamps, and the oil for the light, the incense altar, its poles, the anointing oil, the sweet incenses, offerings with its bronze grating, its poles, all its utensils, and the laver and its basin, the hangings of the court, its pillars, their sockets, and the screens for the gate of the court, the pegs of the tabernacle, the pegs of the court, and their cords, the garments of ministry, the ministering in the holy place, the holy garments for Aaron and the priests, and the garments of his sons to ministers, priests. And all the congregation of the children of Israel departed from the presence of Moses. Then everyone came whose heart was stirred, and everyone whose spirit was willing, and they brought the Lord's offering for the work of the tabernacle of meeting, for all its service, and for the holy garments." And so, as we kind of read through that and think through that, question is, if it comes up, well, this first one. Does everybody know what artesian means? Yeah, so at restaurant, it's a worker skilled in a trade, especially one that kind of involves the hand making of things. And so you kind of think about that. That's the first thing God called out in that thing, in those verses. Everyone that has skills in making things in their hands. And I guess is there anything that we can learn from these verses and how God views the work of these skilled workers? Very broad. They didn't have sewing machines, that's for sure. Yes. They had to have the skill, for sure. Yeah, they didn't have anything, yes.
That we see in work is it really brings people together. I think about working together with people that I didn't know before. For instance, at school, I have a para, I didn't know her at all. And now she's one of my, a really close friend to me. And because when you work with people together, you just grow together and you grow to love each other. And I think, when we work together in the Lord and we do things for other people in our service, it really does make us feel like a family when we work together. And so there is much beauty when we in love work together with each other, and it does, allow us to be closer and feel closer, and it's a good thing when we work together.
I didn't think about that, but you think about all these different things that people are bringing together to what are they creating? The tabernacle, right? This beautiful, everything within there, right? And putting it together, it's beautiful.
I was thinking when we were, putting stuff up on the board, most of why you work, the whole list is about what it benefits me. And I think, if it comes down to it, why do I have a job as opposed to not having a job? It's because I need money to live. I mean, of course, that's a part of it. But I think, based on this, what does God see from these people that it's necessary? It's necessary for them to do their job. It's necessary for them to make their contribution. And, I think for me, of course I work because I need the money, but if somebody asked me why I love my job, my answer would not be because of the money. It's because of the contribution that I feel like I make to kids, and the difference that I make in those kids' lives, and the influence that I feel like I can have upon them to guide them and those kinds of things. And I would assume in this passage that we just read that those people that were moved to provide those items were proud of their ability and proud of their, what they were able to contribute and able to give. So just because the reason that you work is because you need to function, I think there is something deeper, more intrinsic to that, as far as what you can produce and what you are proud that you have learned or what you have accomplished and that you can offer. That's a big part of it as well.
Great comment. It would go well with what I was about to say, but I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let Albert and whoever else wants to say.
If you don't have time.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
That's
That's
great,
fine.
but I just, to build on Michael's point about his attitude in growing up or his disposition, I don't think we're far from that. When we think about our land, we're blessed in our culture and our land of who we are, and that we have an abundance. And like we've talked time and time again, it's difficult for us to think of a king and being under a king. It's difficult for us to think of this, our bread, our daily bread. So work was to provide sustenance that day and getting all, but in going with the example of the Old Testament, what you have here, I think of the New Testament and God talking about the body. Each has a role, and each have, if everybody's a carpenter, great. We all have picnic tables to sell, but we don't have dinner plates. We don't have meat that's been processed. We don't have cheese or dairy. So I see where God, again, it takes all these things to make a whole, and that whole is to be of God and to serve God.
Yeah, for sure. David?
I think how we kind of separate our secular lives from our spiritual lives. Actually, Daniel gave a sermon, I think it was 2022, maybe it was last 2021, about there is no distinction in actuality. When we think about our work, it's like secular, and then church, this is our spiritual life.
Yeah, I remember that.
Those verses show me that there's like a divine purpose even in your quote-unquote secular position, and we should think of it that way. It's not marching off to be a drone. Like, you can think of anybody's job. Even working for the Internal Revenue Service, people say, oh, you can't draw that parallel. Well, actually, you can. I mean, imagine a world where no federal employee was a Christian. Or imagine a world where no lawyer was a Christian. Lawyers get a bad rap, too.
Yeah.
We would all want Christian lawyers or Christian revenue agents or whoever. And so there's this divine purpose about how you can be a light within whatever you are doing to show that you care about people and that you love people and that you care about their feelings and want to do the right thing.
Yeah. You guys are going exactly where.
All right, I'll make this quick. Yeah. But it talks about an artisan. That means a skilled worker. Those skills came from somewhere. So it's good that you invest yourself in your education, invest yourself in practice, you invest yourself in developing your skill set so that you will do the best job possible, because we are in fact serving one another. So if you need a heart transplant, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good if you didn't have an individual who invested themselves in doing the best job possible and learning the best skills possible. And I would go beyond that, but go into your concordance and look up work, and you're going to see all the good works that we're, getting back to what David said, that we are to involve ourselves in spiritually. For we were created for good works. And so invest yourself in that. Excel in that. Know your scriptures. And more than knowledge, knowledge does you no good unless you put it into practice. And with practice, you come better at it.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Look, we need to look at verse 1 and 2 of chapter 36 again and figure out who it is that gives us these opportunities and provides us with these jobs and who gives us the talent, blah, 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 blah. Okay? But I'm going to tell you something. What people miss is the perspective. Okay? When I look back over my career of over 30 years, all right, and I think about, I can't even remember some of the stuff that was supposed to be so great for me. And you know what? I don't care. But I'll tell you what I do care about. I care about those girls and the time I spent with those girls. And I think about how much more I could have spent with them and the wife of my youth and the things that are more important in this life. Okay? He gives us the opportunities. We pray for opportunities. He provides us with the talent and all that. And we have to work, and we've got to do the best job we can. But we've got to have some perspective, for crying out loud. And we got to understand what's most important. And it ain't the almighty dollar. And it's not the senior vice president thing on your business card, which nobody cares about anyway. You know, my pawpaw worked for 45 years at Gulf Oil. And when it was all said and done, I said, "Hey, Pops, 45 years at Gulf Oil." He said, "Yeah, they gave me a watch." It didn't matter. Okay? What matters are those things we listed. Our children, our church, the service that we have to provide for other people. And if we stay at the office, and if we continue to push for our self-esteem and our title and for the amount of money that we make, when it comes down to it, that's worthless, Alex. It's worthless.
All right. Harrison, you're the last one.
All right. One of the things that I think that work does is it helps us keep our bodies and minds functional.
Yeah, for sure.
And without work, we would lose some of that functionality and abilities to do things.
For sure, for sure. A lot of great comments. I mean, you guys were going exactly in the mindset that I was going at. I was kind of thinking what was the purpose of these people, all these skilled workers, and they were all really working for God. They could easily see that the contributions that they were doing were for the tabernacle. It was directly connected to God. And to David's point, it's like how, what was the driving force? I wanted us to kind of see, well, their hearts were stirred. They were excited about it. They, their spirit was willing. But eventually I was going to ask us, for the application for us, I mean, are we able to see all of these things within our jobs? It's like, are we able to, what was I saying? Is it because they were set up, or are we willing to go to our jobs all the time and recognize everything that we're doing? Well, sometimes not, but it was important to them because they saw that everything that they were doing was for God, and their product was for the tabernacle. And can we see the product of our job connected to God in the same way? And I thought about you, David, whenever I was thinking about this, because I was thinking about my job is like, well, these projects that I lead, these things that I do is like, how can I relate that to something that's for God? And you gave a good examples, like if everybody in the federal tax system were not Christians, what kind of system would we have? That's a good point. And I was just trying to figure out the sales figures that we're doing, all of these things that we're doing for our jobs, can we connect them very easily with something that is for God? And I started asking myself, well, maybe it's not, the results or these accomplishments that maybe I'm figuring out of how to do these things at my job, these projects or whatever. Maybe it's really that journey that I'm taking to get those things. How am I getting to that final reorganization of this section of the business or whatever? How am I treating all of those people as we go through these changes? How am I representing myself? Am I getting upset? Or I don't know, just I was trying to think of trying to make my actions at work, the results of the things that I'm doing at work more related to God and more direct to God. And maybe it's more just about that journey as opposed to the actual end product, was one thought that I had. Just probably what I'll leave you with, because it looks like Dan's opening the door. And did we have the second bell, or oh, we got 5 minutes. Okay, good. Terry's got a comment.
The gospel is replete with examples. We look in the Old Testament at the book of Esther. God put her in that place as the queen of Persia for that purpose, to save her people.
Yeah.
So you never know why you're put there, but God expects of you, to do bring him the glory in that place.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we got 2 minutes, and I've got like 24 more slides to go. So let me see. I was going to take y'all through. These are just occupations within the New Testament. These are individuals that kind of have jobs. Luke, we know he was a physician. All these individuals had various teaching, Cell Over Purple, different things like that. We were going to talk about Paul. What was his occupation? Tent maker, yeah. Did he have any coworkers? Aquila and Priscilla, right? Yeah, they stayed together. They worked together. They were tent makers. One question: what were Priscilla and Aquila able to do because of their income? I don't know if it specifically says this, but maybe you can extrapolate maybe some of the things that they were able to do because they had income. Evangelize, yeah. Where did they evangelize? Where does it? Yes, but there's specific reference of what they were doing with their home. The church was in their home, right? And so maybe that income helped them with that effort, I guess. Just a thought. All the kids are out, so we'll keep moving. Keep going to the next. I think the next one is more about how people view us in the workplace. So we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks for listening.